These are the parts required to replace the impeller on a Yamaha 2 horsepower. We need 80W90 gear oil, the impeller number, crimp washers that go on the drain oil plugs. These must be replaced every time the oil is drained from the lower unit. You need 2 of these. To begin, we must remove the 2 10mm bolts that hold in the lower unit. You can separate the lower unit by inserting a screwdriver indicated here. We must drain the oil from the lower housing unit using a flathead screwdriver. We must now remove the prop cotter pin. The following steps are far easier if the propeller is removed. I am using snub nose pliers to remove the prop cotter pin. You can see that these next steps would have been far easier with the propeller removed. Using a 10mm socket, we can remove the screws that hold on the lower gear unit housing, as I am indicating here. We must now remove the propeller shaft pin. It is far easier to use a pin punch. However, I am using an Allen key that fits through the pinhole. It is important to support the propeller shaft when you are hitting out the pin. With the pin removed, we can now remove the housing to the lower unit gears. Using a flat head, there are 2 grooves that it can be inserted in to help aid the removal of the housing cap. Check the O-ring on the lower unit housing to see if it needs replacement. On the bottom of the drive shaft, we see a small gear. This is a C-clip that needs to be removed. I am indicating its location now. Below the small gear. This holds the drive shaft in place and must be removed. I am indicating the assembly of the lower unit now. This is to help you understand how it all fits together. There is a thin washer, then a thicker washer, then the gears, then the C-clip. Removal of the C-clip is easiest with a long needle nose plier. However, I am using a small flathead and the Allen key that was used before. With the C-clip removed, we can now remove the drive shaft. The impeller can then be slid off the drive shaft and replaced. If you want to remove the upper impeller housing, you must remove the pin in the drive shaft that we are sliding past now. That is held in by a friction grip. These are the parts required to replace the upper impeller housing. I am inserting the water seal into the upper impeller housing as seen here. I use the shaft to seat it correctly by inserting it in the reverse direction to push it on. This is the plate that goes on the upper impeller housing. Make sure that you orientate it correctly. I am now reinserting the drive shaft pin. It is important to use a lot of marine grease in order to prevent corrosion. It is important to grease the lower seals. I am once again showing you the assembly of the lower gears in the lower unit. This is the thin washer, thick washer, gears, and then C-clip. When inserting the impeller, make sure that it goes in the correct orientation, which is right to left, and make sure none of the fins are bent, or in a clockwise manner when looking down the shaft at the lower unit. We are now assembling the lower drive shaft gears inside the lower unit, as indicated previously, with the thin washer, thick washer, gears, and then C-clip. You will need to have some movement in the drive shaft to assemble it correctly. I am indicating the assembled unit now. I am inserting the C-clip correctly as it wasn't quite seated. Using an 8mm spanner, I am now seating the upper housing. This is done by tightening two 8mm bolts indicated here. I am now inspecting the O-ring on the lower unit housing and applying grease. Using a 10mm spanner, I am now tightening the two 10mm screws that hold on the lower unit housing. I put grease on all screws as they go back into the unit. I am now reinserting the prop cotter pin. This can be manually inserted and then further inserted using a hammer or pin punch and a hammer. Support the prop shaft when you are reinserting. We can now reinsert the propeller. I first coated in a layer of grease. I am now inserting the split pin into the propeller. There are two directions in which you can insert it. One is significantly easier than the other. I use a hammer to fully insert the split pin. We must now bend the ends of the split pin in order to hold the propeller on the shaft. We then put the crimp washers on the oil drain screws. To fill the lower unit, insert your oil into the lower hole and squirt until it comes out the top hole. This is the easiest method to fill up the lower unit. When it is full, you can place your finger on the top hole to prevent the oil escaping. I am holding it on the side and inserting the lower oil screw, then topping it up and inserting the top screw. You want the oil to be just about flowing out of the top screw. I am now cleaning up the lower unit and letting it stand for a while to make sure there is no oil loss. We are now inserting the O-ring into the upper housing, which holds the shaft cover in place, as seen here. You may need to use a small flathead screwdriver to get it in place. This is easier done before this is all assembled. We are now inserting the rubber plug into the upper impeller housing. This is so that the metal tube in the middle unit can slot into it, allowing the water to be pumped out up into the upper unit. We are now going to reinsert the lower unit. Make sure that the plate on top of the lower unit is orientated correctly. Use a lot of grease in order to prevent corrosion. I am now indicating where the pipe in the middle unit slots into, which allows the water to be pumped up into the upper unit now. I am now reinstalling the two 10mm bolts that hold in the lower unit. First applying lots of grease. Thank you for watching another how to service video.